Fab, and I think we are live. This is so exciting. Hello, I'm Liv Harvey, and I'm the current Vice President of Vice President of I've got my role then. Vice President Activities of the Students Guild. I'm departing, which is super sad, but I'm joined with some incredible candidates for my role today, which is really exciting. Thank you so much for tuning in today to see what the Vice President Opportunities candidates have to say about the key issues that matter to you. Our student elections are such an important part of our student experience. You get to choose who represents us for the next academic year on all levels, so that's subject chairs, college officers, as well as full-time officers. So this is a brand new role that has been expanded from my current VP Activities role. It's refocused to still support student activities and groups, including societies, but will be broadened out to include more employability campaigns and projects. We've also removed some of the operational aspects so that the role can focus on representing your student experience. So if you want to find out more about what each candidate wants to change at Exeter, then head over to our website, exeterguild.com/elections. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, please do comment them in the Facebook live stream thread or on Twitter using the hashtag #XElections21. So each candidate will have up to 30 seconds to answer the questions that are put before them. And a reminder to please be kind and considerate to all candidates. Elections is always a super fun week with plenty of opportunity for challenge and debate, but it should be the policies that we're scrutinising and no harassing the candidates. So please do be kind and considerate. So I'm going to introduce each candidate to tell us a little bit more about themselves and why you should vote for them. And each candidate will have 1 minute to do this. So if I can please start with Megan.
Hello, I'm Megan. I'm a third year now for Ancient History and Archaeology. Basically why you should vote for me is I've had lots of experience working with the Guild. I'm currently working on their Get Connected campaign, so that's a lot of welfare things. I've also had experience on committees for academic and also like physical societies. And generally my main focus is taking your guys' experience and not just going off what I know and things like that. And yeah, working with you.
Great, thank you, Megan. And next up is Izzy.
Hi, I'm Izzy. I'm a third year drama student. My manifesto has 3 main points, which are diversity and inclusivity, for example, by meeting the aims of the Accessibility Pledge, student safety, such as by introducing shuttle buses at night, and clarity and support by becoming less bureaucratic to support students effectively in the transition back to in-person activity, for example, by creating a committee resource bank. As a candidate, I've got lots of experience in leadership roles. I've been on 3 different committees, one of which is as a president. I've also been involved in over 18 society theatre productions in management roles. So I've got lots of experience working with the Guild. Ever since the start of my first year, I've been filling out risk assessments and getting to grips with the system, which means I'm best placed to take the role in my stride and provide safe and accessible opportunities for students from all backgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Izzy. Next up, we have Ollie.
I'm Ollie Cohen. I'm a second year economics and politics student. I've decided to run because I've seen how vital societies are to our student experience. As a committee member, I've seen how hard committees have worked to deliver an online experience, but also that there is much more to be done going forward. I'm running to ensure that we provide sufficient support to our societies as we emerge from lockdown, to increase transparency to the Guild's operations, to make our well-being a priority, to ensure our career service has opportunities for all of us, and most importantly, to build a Guild that works for all of us.
Thank you, Ollie. And last but not least, Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a third year history student who has been on committee in various roles across the last 2 years, including having been president for the last year. In this, I've had a lot of working with the Guild and seeing how it runs, but in doing this, I've also seen how it can be run better, which is why I want to be your VP Opportunities next year, to be able to introduce a number of changes to be able to have the Guild be able to better cooperate with students and societies, to be able to better support the student experience and enrich it. While with the addition of employability, I want to increase radical new changes to bring about new employability events that will be able to specialise more with more students rather than the generalised events we have now. I'm mainly focused around ideas of supporting students and societies through expanded welfare and expanded transparency and communication, to be able to allow people to have more opportunities where they already exist, but they actually now know about them more, because I think that's a key issue, is to be able to communicate and engage with students more so. and to have their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. We also have Shadan Wong as a candidate for VP Opportunities, but they've not been able to attend the question time today. So thank you so much to all of you for those wonderful introductions. Now it's the moment we've all been waiting for, question time. Don't forget you can submit your questions by commenting in this feed or tweeting using hashtag #EXEelections21. We may not be able to answer all of your questions today, so do reach out to candidates if you would like an answer to your questions outside of this event. As a reminder, each candidate will get 30 seconds to answer and we'll be asking the same question to all candidates. So I'm going to start with a question, if that's okay. And I think this question was asked to me in my first year when I did the sort of debate thing in the forum. And it was, if you could create a society that doesn't already exist, which I know there's not many, what society would you create? So I'll just give you a few seconds to think about that because I know it's quite hard because we have like 300. And then if it's okay, I will go to Megan first.
Wow, not an easy question to start on. I think I would probably do something along the lines of my music taste, which is quite rogue, but I would probably go for have a bit of like an emo throwback society, playing a little bit of like, you know, Fall Out Boy, get a bit of Panic at the Disco in there. I think that's probably what I'd have to go for.
Great, thanks, Megan. Can I go to Sam now?
Yeah, I think as we've seen across the last year, we've had a lot of binge watching of TV. So I think a great society is, while we've had various society events watching TV, if we had a society dedicated to having TV as anything as well. We've got great ex-media shows. If we can have like one for actual TV events and TV shows, we can have a chat about all the great TV and watch classic sitcoms and stuff like that. I think that'd be a great way of having a greater community feel.
Cool, thanks, Sam. Ollie? You're muted, Ollie.
My apologies. At this university, we have such a great varied range of societies. You say there's 300, so I think we're very well catered for, and I'm not sure that I can see a gap where I would create a new one.
Great, thanks, Ollie. And last but not least, Izzy.
I would create a society for theatre and film TV producers. If Theatre Extra isn't big enough already, I think we could have a new society to network and chat about the production side of things. So that's what I'd do.
Great. So our first question from Facebook is, how will you make sure your role as VP Opportunities will be inclusive of PGR students? Can I go to Sam first?
Yeah, so obviously we're all undergrads, but there is a key thing of trying to involve the voice of postgrad students more. I think often there is a lack of engagement, and especially where they often come at different points of the year, that if we have pre-joining engagement to be able to show the opportunities that Guild are available, as well there are already a number of ways they can engage, they're often not clearly advertised, I think. And so we can have clearly this advertisement and direct engagement with PGR students to try and break down the very undergraduate focus of it, so that we have to show that PGR students can join in with all Guild activities and show that they have so many opportunities for them to get involved that already exist.
Thank you, Sam. Izzy?
Yeah, so one of my ideas is a society rep feedback group, and I think within that it'd be really important to have representatives from different groups, so a postgraduate representative, international students, and reps from all different groups. And I think that'd be a really great way to get feedback from those students and incorporate it into activity.
Thank you. Ollie?
I would like to make sure that both freshers and refreshers have a suitable number of events that are that are meeting the needs and aims of the postgraduates. And to make sure that we're doing this, I want to make sure that we're actively listening to postgraduate students, and to make sure that enough postgraduate students are getting involved in the running of the Guild and providing an adequate amount of voice to the events that are provided.
And Megan?
So yeah, kind of all of the same, but I think there's a lot of where postgrads don't either know how to get involved or don't know how they can be supported. So that level of communication really needs to be opened up more and advertised more, that we are there for you guys. And then again with societies, I know there's been postgrads that have joined societies I've been part of, and it's just making sure that they know that they've also got support in there. It's not just loads of 18-year-olds running about kind of thing.
Thank you. So the next question is, how would you support societies and student groups in becoming anti-racist? I'll go to Ollie first.
I think an important part of supporting societies to become anti-racist is to ensure that the sufficient amount of training is available for society committees into how they can be anti-racist, both EDI training, but also adequate amount of bystander training, because I think a lot of people, almost everyone here, I think isn't racist, but a lot of people would feel less confident calling it out. And so it's important that we can all call it out when we see it. And I think bystander training would help a lot with that.
Izzy?
Yeah, as Ollie said, I think training is really important. I plan to bring in an external speaker and external companies to run training talks throughout the year with a focus on diversity training. I also think that my initiative of a member-led initiative, which is working with members from marginalised backgrounds to celebrate diversity. So that would be members working with committee members to create events which amplify their voices. I think that would be a really great way to become anti-racist.
Sam?
I'd say I'd mainly agree with the points of expanded training as we had last year in the summer when we had a number of anti-racist training sessions for committee, but I think to have these in a more better way is because we are now in an online world, we're able to have training like this from external speakers, but also more dedicated guild resources to be able to show where there are systems in place to help tackle this, as we have currently got things like the complaints procedure and similar things, but if we have clearer systems and clearer identification for societies for what resources there are available to help combat racism wherever it is at Exeter.
And Megan?
So yeah, I think that's really clear that we do need more, like showcasing more what is in place to like combat anti-racism. But one of the things that I put in my manifesto was implicit bias training, which I think all committee members need to have. And it shouldn't be done in just like a lukewarm diversity training thing. That's not good enough. It needs to be like proper, complete implicit bias training. Yeah.
Did you all answer that question then? Yeah, I didn't miss anyone. No, I'm getting distracted because we were getting so many questions in, which is brilliant. So the next question is, St. Luke's campus is often forgotten. How will you specifically make sure that St. Luke's students have an equitable provisions to those who are on the Streatham campus? I'm going to go to Izzy first.
So firstly, as I've mentioned before, the rep feedback group will be a way to involve St. Luke's students, again, having representatives from St. Luke's, but also making sure that we have events and activities happening on St. Luke's campus. So I know there's already been a bigger push for that in the last few years, having freshers events there, having guild events there, and having present staff on the St. Luke's campus, not just the Streatham campus.
Thank you, Izzy. Megan?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a push for it, but at the end of the day, it's clearly not enough. St. Luke's students are still not happy with what's been done. More needs to be done. We need to definitely have guild presence on there. If that means spending a day over there a week, whatever, 2 days, it doesn't matter. St. Luke's shouldn't be less than Streatham. Like, we need to be on both campuses. It's not fair for us to just pick one.
And Ollie?
I would agree with everything that's been said so far. We need to make sure that we increase the level of guild presence on St. Luke's campus. One of the things that I would have opposed were I on the SAB team at the time was the closure of the St. Luke's Guild shop. So I would look into what we can do to reverse that and to make sure that we have a substantial guild presence on St. Luke's going forward.
And finally, Sam.
I recognise that regularly the St. Luke's campus is a main theme with these, and it is very much a key part of Exeter life with how it is the sister campus to Streatham in Exeter. And with this, there is definitely a need for greater guild involvement here, which is why I think that part of my manifesto is a greater cooperation between the guild and the athletics union, as currently the athletics union already does have a much larger presence than the guild on St. Luke's campus, given their use of the facilities there. And I think the current guild space on St. Luke's campus could be better used as a cooperative space between the guild and the AAU to have this, while also clearly marking out where the spaces are on St. Luke's campus for people to use, as currently I think there is not enough awareness of the space actually available on St. Luke's to be used by students and societies.
Great, thank you. So this next question is a really good one and definitely something you'd be involved in if you were to be elected. And it is, how will you support societies in their transition back to in-person events? I will go to Ollie first.
Well, my big proposal for supporting societies as we move back to in-person events is the provision of recovering from COVID grants. So for a lot of societies, there's been a lot of financial uncertainty created by COVID. And I think that by providing these grants, we can ensure that every society has resources available to provide in-person events and rebuild their engagement as we move forward, both in summer term, but also in freshers next autumn.
Thank you. Megan?
I think the key thing is making sure that you actually know what the societies want from the guild. It's all well and good going in there without your own ideas, but at the end of the day, what could work for one society, so what could work for a dance society might not work for an academic society. In-person events are different, they need different risk assessments, they need different like provisions and spaces. So it's really, you can't give a whole, like an answer for every society. They're all going to be different. They're all going to have their specialised needs, which you need to speak to the society committees about.
Thank you. Sam?
Yeah, I would echo the points made by Megan, but given that I think that there is this key element of having been a president during the transition from in-person to online events and seeing freshers this year and how there was a large amount of, I think, sometimes miscommunication between the guild and societies, that having clearer lines of communication and cooperation with societies to have their say on how there should be transition, as there is a number of different societies that hold different types of events, as where some are very similar to those that are deemed like seminars where they were in person, that there are some societies that are able to hold these events. And I think there's that key cooperation between societies and the guild in communicating what will happen rather than a number of last minute changes sometimes, or clearly laying out what the options are rather than number of changes. So I think better communication lines. Thank you.
And Izzy?
So one of the ideas I've mentioned already is a committee resource bank, which will have online and in-person event ideas, improved templates for risk assessment, annual budgets, emails. It will also have sustainability tips, wellbeing tips. So that is some resources that committees can use to create their events. Also, again, it's about recognising the difference between types of societies. For example, student safety societies such as Nightline, obviously going to need slightly different support to, say, an academic society might need. And it's about recognising that and not imposing strict rules that blanket all societies.
Fab, thank you, Izzy. Okay, next question is, what are your thoughts on current misconduct and complaints procedures for societies and how could they be improved? I will start with Sam.
I'd say the current complaints procedure is a thing that does exist, but I think it is either A, not known about, or it's very not clear of how it's actually used. And I think it definitely could have an overhaul in how it's actually able to be used by students and societies, given that there are often a number of issues in this that where issues do arise, there are clearer ways of how the process actually works and clear communication to students as to that it exists and how it exists, rather than just having an option having to be found for it, and clearly showing that this does exist as an option, while also making sure there is fairness in how it goes about.
Ollie?
I would echo Sam's points that we need to increase the awareness of the procedure, but it does also need overhaul to make sure that it's an effective procedure. And we need to make sure that it depends on the nature of the misconduct, that we need to make sure that every claim is handled effectively and appropriately, because obviously the nature of the different types of misconduct need to be handled differently.
Izzy?
So I think one of the things that can be done is redefining what counts as a society activity. Some problems I've had in the past is what counts as a society activity, and if it doesn't count, it's handled differently and it can't necessarily be handled through the guild. So I think by redefining what a society event is as something where a few members are, there'll be able to be more effective support for committees and society members. I also think that it needs to minimise the emotional impact on students. You shouldn't have to be repeating your story to countless different people, and there needs to be more clear direction about what routes are available.
And Megan?
So yeah, it really is a combination of what everyone's just said. It needs to be clearer, it needs to be much more like easy to be accessed. Again, what Izzy just said, like the emotional, like difficulties of going through and repeating yourself, and some of them are really hard to hear, not only for you to say but for the people to hear. So I think it's a big thing that it needs to be clearer and it needs to be easier to access.
Great, thank you all so much. So the next question is, the last week has shown us how severe sexual misconduct is as a problem in society. What will you do to ensure this culture is not replicated at society events? And I'll start with Izzy.
So my manifesto has quite a few points, such as shuttle buses and night walking call service, which are about protecting student safety. However, these things shouldn't be necessary. Sadly, they are, but I think by re-educating students on harassment and victim blaming, as well as increasing awareness of these topics, bringing them into discussion, we can help solve the root of the problem and, you know, make one step towards us being safer. So yeah, that's what I'll do.
Thank you, Izzy. Sam?
Yeah, there are definitely those points about increased awareness of this and the fact that it has been such an issue that has been underlying but has been rightly raised, given and given such an attention this week. And that I think it is very much a welfare and wellbeing issue, and that there is such a clear issue here, and that I would press for more awareness of it through a number of where a lot of students do have to sign the agreement when they join the university, making clear that there are certain points in here that students do sign up for, and it is not acceptable for this to take place at university. Whereas also anonymous complaints forms a way of trying to deal with this and tackle where it may arise, and trying to, while it shouldn't happen, we should try and prevent it and cut it off from happening by creating a better culture where it doesn't happen, but also to be able to have measures in place to after it, if it ever does happen.
Thank you, Sam. Megan?
So yeah, I think the education and awareness is a really key point that I think it needs to be brought in a lot more. I think also people need to know that they've got safety to bring these things up, because I think there's a lot of fear of stepping forward and saying, I saw this happen, or like this happen, whatever. I think there's needs to be more safety around that, and there needs to be the support going through misconduct cases. There's a massive lack of support there.
Thank you, Megan. And finally, Ollie.
I think that two of the ways that we could help this are increased training for committee members, but also running workshops for students generally, so that they understand how best to deal with this, because it can be challenging to speak up about this, but we need to all be able to make sure that we have the confidence to stand up to sort of one of your peers doing so, and make sure that you rightly call them out on it, so that we can create a better culture at the university.
Thank you, Ollie. Great. So the next question is, what are your thoughts on making welfare officers a compulsory position within academic societies? And what role could those officers play in liaising between the fun side of the uni? I hope that makes sense. So around why, or if you think it's a good idea to make welfare officers a compulsory position on academic societies. I will start with Sam.
I think this is a key point that I have tried to raise in my manifesto, in that I agree with the principle of welfare officers, but I think the Guild should be looking to the AU for inspiration for how to properly bring this in. As in the AU, there is currently the position of a welfare coordinator, which is a paid and properly trained and qualified role. And I think there needs to be less of a burden placed on students in having to deal with this welfare, and clear Guild procedures and Guild support in allowing this to take place. As well, welfare officers are a good thing. There needs to be that clear level of support from the Guild and from higher ups with people with proper training and proper qualifications in how to actually support welfare issues.
I will go to Megan next. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, seconding that. We can't enforce committee members to be welfare officers, because at the end of the day, we don't have the proper training. Some people who go on to be welfare officers have years of training. We can't just assume that committee members are going to have that. I've seen from votes that have taken place on committees that a lot of members don't actually want a specific welfare role. They would prefer to have it like entwined within previous positions. And I think that just makes it easier to have everything more streamlined, and then there are actual professionals that we can consult if it got to that point.
Can I go to Ollie next, please?
This is a proposal that I would support, and it is a key proposal on my manifesto. It's a proposal that's taken quite seriously by the AU, and certainly from my experiences dealing with snow sports, I've been very impressed with how they handle things, and so I would wholeheartedly support it. But I think it's important that students acting as welfare officers aren't doing so alone, and we need to make sure that the Guild provides sufficient support, sufficient resources, and a sufficient way to escalate things if they need to do so.
Thank you, Ollie. And Izzy?
I think that it is important to have someone on committees who is responsible for welfare. I've said the wrong word, they're not responsible. I think what the role is needs to be thought about carefully. They're not there as a therapist. I don't think they should have this pressure. Like the others have said, there need to be paid trained staff for that. However, by having these members who have extra training on the services that are available, they can act as a signposting role. For example, a more awareness of the widening participation services in the Guild, so that if you've got a care leaver or an estranged student in your committee, you know where to signpost them. Those services are not widely advertised. And so I think it's not about putting the burden on...
Sorry, Izzy, I'm going to have to interrupt you. Sorry. Thank you so much.
30 seconds.
Yeah, no, it goes so quick. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to quickly move on to the next question. Sorry, it's because you guys are just too popular. We've got too many to go through. So the next question is, since transparency is a common theme across all of the candidates, how will you make sure that transparency is implemented? And I will start with Ollie.
There are two ways I'd like to see transparency implemented. Firstly, I'd like to increase the transparency of society's finances, because we already at the Guild have to provide a full list of expenses. So I think it would be very easy to categorize those expenses and put a piece on the Society's Guild website showing in broad categories how they spend the membership fees. But I think we also need to bring transparency to the Guild's meetings by providing minutes of the meetings and maybe a monthly summary of the key meetings that have taken place. And we need to make sure that this information is easily accessible, because I've spoken to you about...
Sorry, Ollie, I'm going to have to interrupt you as well. Thank you. I love how passionate everyone is. And I know you could talk about these questions for ages. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to have to quickly keep to time. Megan, can I go to you next, please?
So this was a really big part of my manifesto. I'm really passionate about somehow getting the minutes of meetings publicised. I think they should be on the Guild website. I think students should definitely know what is being said in meetings and what is being discussed. Because if there are any students that actively are against it or for it, so with sustainability, students can come forward and say, I want to be part of this because I want to make sure that the right things are coming across.
Thank you, Megan. And Izzy?
So again, I've mentioned this a few times, but the RAP feedback group will happen online monthly. If there are more RAPs, it can be split into 2 groups, and there'll be circulated minutes for that, circulated meeting minutes. I also want to have guaranteed meetings for larger scale events, so they can be supported directly throughout the process with optional follow-up meetings, so that support is maintained, and so that there is an awareness right from the beginning of a process of what's possible, how the Guild are able to support, and what the best way is to move forward with those events.
Thank you, Izzy. And Sam?
Again, this is a key tenet of my manifesto, and I push forward the idea of active transparency. As well, there is some degree of transparency in the Guild, I think it can be more actively done. For example, across the last 3 years, I've been searching through my emails and I found one singular email that mentions the fact that Guild Council meetings are available for all students to attend. And Guild Council meeting minutes are currently available on the Guild website. However, they are somewhat hidden. So I think that things like this should be more clearly publicised by the Guild, where existing transparency measures are in place, to show students directly where these transparency is able to be seen. And I think this is the clear thing that can be done, is have this clear active transparency where the Guild is properly able to be scrutinised and seen for what it is doing for students, by students.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, so next question I've got is, how will you work with the current and other representatives to build upon your work as VP opportunities? And I will go to Izzy first.
I think that it's really important to have an open dialogue between all the SABs. A lot of our policies overlap, which is great. And I think, we're opportunities role, but liberation and equality is going to come into that. Opportunities for employability is going to be related to education. So I think it's about working together on things and making sure that the great policies that are being introduced in other areas carry through across the board, and that we have an awareness of all the different things that are happening.
Thank you, Izzy. Sam?
Yeah, certainly. I recognise there is with this role, in its expansion, there is a lot of it can do with all the different sub roles, especially ones like education, where I am proposing college-based careers fairs. So there'll be direct communication between me and the VP Education around college-based things. Whereas I've also said I think there should be more direct, close communication between the Guild and the AU. So I'd have close contact with the AU president to be able to have a closer cooperation and connection between these two. While again, with the VP Liberation and Equality, I think there is this key element of welfare, which is where I said about better welfare training, while transparency can definitely be done from the top with support from a guild president. And I think this shows that there is...
Sorry, Sam, I'm gonna have to cut you off, but thank you so much. Megan, I feel so brutal.
So yeah, everything overlaps. Welfare training in society, that's going to overlap with liberation and equality. Careers fair is going to overlap with education. Everything kind of comes under guild president. It's really, if you can work as a team, then that's the best part of it. You can't say that everything's going to be separate, because if it was, it probably wouldn't work.
Thank you. And Ollie?
As has already been said, I'll echo those thoughts and say that it's important that because our roles overlap, that we work together as a team and cooperate to have a joint plan for what we're doing to assure that we can deliver all of our initiatives effectively. As for working with the current team, some of my proposals for supporting societies, such as the COVID recovery grants, I would like to work with you on from day one to deliver them, because it's important that we start supporting our societies from now.
Great, thank you, Ollie. So the next question, I think this is something that's definitely really important to me, is how will you showcase and celebrate the work that societies and student volunteers do? And I'll start with Megan.
So one of the things in my manifesto is that I want to have Sunday society spotlights, whether that's for fundraising, whether that's for a particular event that the society is holding. It's just, we need to have that regular, constant push out of saying, we have 300 societies, we've got a lot of societies, there's a lot going on. And it's having that constant push out saying, okay, yeah, we have all of this amazing things, please do get involved, rather than just leaving people to it.
Sam?
It's something that's definitely deep to my heart, having been a member of society and a community member. And I think I've seen the ways that the guild channels can be used for society promotion. I think this is clearly done before, but as with saying, there is 300 societies, so there's definitely an element of difficulty here. One of my key points on my manifesto is that with open days being a thing, I think society should have better access to open days so that the guild is able to celebrate societies being a part of the university before students even come. And as well as with the Great Society Welcome last year, and I think to bring this back to be able to celebrate the community members on societies together and have greater with those on societies and celebrate the role they do together by the guild. I think that would also be a key way of being able to show they're recognised.
Thank you so much. Ollie?
I would like to make sure that there is good cooperation between the Society Spotlight scheme and the societies themselves to make sure that, say, smaller or newer societies are allowed to nominate events that they'd like to have maybe more attention drawn to on the Guild's official channels to help boost their awareness and engagement.
And Izzy?
Firstly, I want to introduce accredited training where societies can log their training into a system, and it's the kind of thing that will benefit them in the future. It could maybe go on their university transcript if they've got something accredited and a qualification. And then I also want to work directly with societies to create monthly campaigns which celebrate diversity and inclusivity and bring their work across a wider scale and across the Guild.
Great, thank you. So next question is, what employability opportunities and campaigns do you think would be important to students that you'd like to facilitate? And I will start with Sam.
I love the fact that the VP Opportunities role is incorporating this employability factor, as we are facing this year a graduate market that is often looking much more difficult than we've ever had before. As such, I think the way the Guild can work is to give them better student voice in the employability that is showcased by the university, as currently we have rather generalised events such as the careers fair, which is why I'm proposing the idea of college-based careers fair like the one that exists with the law school, to be able to have specialised careers fairs for those that are looking for more specific careers based on the subject degree they are doing.
Thank you so much, Sam. Sorry, just interrupting. Can I go to Izzy now?
Yeah, one of the things I want to do is work with Career Zone and the widening participation students, so estranged students, student carers. As a student carer myself, I know that it can be quite daunting. Some students, when they leave university, their caring responsibilities are not going to go away. And I want to create programs that support those kind of students and help them to find opportunities and employability schemes that work for them.
Megan, can I go to you next?
So I want a really big push on visa supported career fairs and a big push on international careers, because there's not that much engagement or publicised about that. And then another thing is really reorganising the career zone, because at the moment I know there are some higher education places that are saying they know when extra students come because they're not fully prepared. And if that's the case, as a top Russell Group university, we need to change that. That's not okay.
Great, thank you, Megan. And Ollie?
I'd like to propose a programme of sort of sharing knowledge between each department with its career service, because every department has its own initiatives that they've developed. And I think it's important that they share all the initiatives to ensure that we get the best possible opportunities for all students. I'd also like to make sure that the employability events that are held, none of them are college specific, because although it's important that we have specialised employability events, you shouldn't be restricted from attending just because you don't study sort of the right degree.
Thank you, Ollie. So the next question is, many key government ministers believe that SUs are useless organisations where students either party all the time or take part in niche activism. How would you ensure that this political context doesn't affect funding or the support for the Students' Guild? And I'll start with Izzy, please.
Well, I mean, I obviously disagree with that statement. I've learned so many skills from working in society activity. I wouldn't be working in the areas that I am now. I didn't even know that I liked theatre production before I came here. And I think recognising the massive employability benefits that societies can bring is really important. And I think, we should be nationally lobbying for that support and that recognition of actually how important society activity is. And I think by introducing accredited training and extended training for committees and all members, it can really up that employability side of the societies.
Thank you, Izzy. Megan?
Yeah, highlighting the fact that societies do have employable values, and the skills that you can learn from being part of society, being part of committee, really need to be showcased as much as possible. And also people need to be told how they can showcase them, which is also why the career zone needs a bit of a revamp, because we don't really get that from there. And I think also it's looking at the facts and figures of societies work at giving people confidence, giving people extra skills. It's not just a jolly, as some ministers might say.
Thank you, Megan. Ollie?
I think it would be important to remind such senior politicians that many of them, including our very own Prime Minister, first stuck their toe into representing people through their student unions. And representing people and making sure that your voice is heard is a vital part of our democracy. And I think we should remind them of how important that is and the great benefits that we get from it.
Thank you, Ollie. And Sam?
So this year itself is proof that that statement just isn't true, given the work that the current officer team has done in pushing for the values that students believe in and having represented students to the Cabinet Office itself. And so, as well as a number of campaigns that student-led campaigns this year have been immense in how far they have done. I think this shows that students themselves are currently undervalued from a number of government ministers, and that this is a thing that is just untrue, given that we've got great society work that is often not jollies. As we've seen this year, it's been a lot harder to have a good old jolly. So I think that shows that societies, when pushed, are able to adapt, and it shows the adaptability of students at this time to be able to really show their true value.
Great, thank you, Sam. They were all really lovely answers. I'm very confident that whoever ends up as VP Opportunities, our SU will be in very safe hands, and you're all very keen advocates for the students' movement. Completely agree with everything you've all said. Really, really brilliant. Thank you. So next question is, an issue is often that students aren't actually engaging, even if they are aware that they can attend meetings. How would you encourage students to engage, particularly those of us who have other commitments, e.g. students with children, with work commitments, disabilities, etc., that may take up a lot of our time? So how would you get those particular students to engage? Can I start with Ollie?
I think an important way to boost engagement in meetings would be to publish the outcomes of the meetings and show how people have been listened to, because people will be more encouraged to engage if they can see that it will allow them to make their voice heard and have a say in the future of our guild.
Thank you. Megan?
So yeah, the meetings and everything needs to be published, because students with children are not going to be able to say, I can do this every week. They need to know what's coming up next week. They need to know when it's something that they are concerned about, so they can plan their time to be there. They can't, not always can they have that regular time period. But also similarly, like, I think Liv, you told me this, that it's a very flexible hours. We don't have to just be so rigid and saying it is always this every time, but communicating that actually we can talk to you at other times. It doesn't have to be in specific slots. We're here for you, like we can work around you.
Thank you, Megan. Izzy?
Firstly, by working with groups such as the Disability Campaign to meet the aims of the Accessibility Pledge will really help make events more accessible to all students. And also, a thing we've done with Drama Sock this year is we've managed to maintain our membership numbers so they're the same as they were last year. And we've done that by introducing a bigger focus on industry workshops and employability. So that's hooked people in, because then they're getting something out of coming. And we've also introduced a family system, which I know a lot of groups have. And that means that you're building relationships and getting things out of it. So it's about incentive to want to come, what you're getting out of it, and accessibility so that you can attend.
Great, thank you, Izzy. And Sam?
I think, yeah, I'd like to echo a number of points made in that. I think being able to show where student voices have been heard and the change this has done will encourage more students to get involved, as they can see their voices are being heard. But also to be able to clearly publicise when their voices can be heard and how they can be heard is the key way, is to be shown to be able to have that planning time of where they can be involved, or a number of methods where they don't need to have a specific time. If there is just a form or something, the way they can get involved and have their say, to be able to have it without that time constraint, to just know their voices being heard and know their different problems are being listened to, rather than a homogenic voice currently.
Thanks, Sam. So our next question is, what are your plans on supporting society continuation this year and next, as many society committees are finding it really difficult to find people to fill positions in current AGMs? And I will start with Megan.
So at the moment, you only need president, vice president, and treasurer for your societies to go ahead. And those positions, a lot of people don't feel confident enough to go for them, because of, if you've only been here for a year, you don't know much about the society events haven't gone on. And I think it's really, we need to introduce, especially over this summer, a flexibility period, whether that means giving longer for people to get their positions filled, whatever the case, but making sure that societies can still run and have a little bit of leeway, because I mean, at the end of the day, this year has been chaotic for everyone. We need to be as compassionate as possible.
Thank you, Megan. Ollie?
I would agree with the comments of Megan that we do need to make sure that there is flexibility with the filling of committee positions to avoid societies going into dormancy unnecessarily. One of the things that Sunday has introduced, which I will wholeheartedly support, is allowing a committee position to be shared by more than one person, which decreases the workload for students and will hopefully make the prospect of taking up a committee position less intimidating.
Great, thank you. Sam?
I think in this issue, it's the key points of flexibility and understanding of the host, because it has been seen from personal view that there has been issues of engagement, and that people are tired of Zoom across the year. And I think there is a key issue there where there has been engagement, has dipped over the year. But I think there is that key of seeing is that we have now got a number of months where there is a number of flexibility involved, whether that involves societies having to run more than one election, even though that is a difficult process, but having clear understanding and flexibility and allowance of discussions between societies and the guild where there may be concerns, and working out if there are innovative techniques that could be employed to work out where students that may not have previously been, such as year abroads, may be able to get involved. As we've seen, online is a key element where these students may be able to get
Sorry,
involved.
Sam, I'm going to have to interrupt you, but thank you so much. Izzy?
I think we can all acknowledge that society committees are not diverse, and if you don't see someone like yourself in a committee, you're not going to want to go for it. So my member-led initiative will actively encourage members from marginalised backgrounds to be involved in societies, and I think that'll be a great way of encouraging people to say, yeah, there are people like me, this is something I can do. And secondly, by improving training, people will feel more supported and more able to go for these roles. If you know that you're going to have extended welfare training and you're not going to be alone in dealing with problems, I think you're more likely to go and think, yeah, this is something I can take on and I will be supported in that process.
Great, thank you. So next up we have, what do you think of the current activity system that society committees use? It's quite a broad question, so you can kind of touch on whichever bits you'd like to there. So what do you think of the current activity system that society committees currently use? And I'll start with Ollie. Sorry if I started with you last time, I'm losing track.
I think the current system, it is effective in that it does allow us to achieve what we need to, but I think there are definitely opportunities to streamline the process and to make it much more user-friendly. And so that's something that I would push for. Also with society's expenses, the current Expense 365 app isn't the most user-friendly solution. So I think we should push for increased streamlining without losing the effectiveness of the processes and making them as user-friendly as possible.
Thanks, Ollie. Megan?
Yeah, anyone who's been on a committee with me knows I despise that Expense 365 app. It just doesn't really work for different types of events. And I think that needs to be completely changed or altered slightly to make it easier to fit in with other forms. And also room bookings, passionate about room bookings, because when there's only one room available and you've got a group of 30 people going and it's a room of 5 people, it needs to be allocated in this different way, because at the moment and last year, it just wasn't working.
Izzy?
I am a huge fan of the activities system, because before it was in place, it was such a nightmare. I mean, it was more of a nightmare getting events approved, and I think it's so great now because you know exactly where your stuff is at. I do think it needs to be streamlined. Having to put your budgets on the OneNote is a bit of a faff, and I think by having improved budgets, templates, risk assessment templates, we can make that process easier, smoother and more streamlined. But I really am a fan of the activity system because it's all in one place and you know who's dealing with your event.
And Sam?
I recognise there are a number of effective measures within the activity system. However, I think there's a much deal of clarity that needs to be brought to it to streamline it. As currently the activity system for submitting events is rather confusing, I found, in the fact that you've got differences between activities and events. It's just not made clear. And things like that are a clear issue where it's just not exactly made clear to society what there is. Also, I think we should return to a policy that we had back when I was a first year, in that a number of events were able to be displayed on the iExtra timetable. And I think if we can work to have this integrated again, it would be able to push society events and have it clearer what society events are being run for students in a much clearer way with this integration.
Thank you, Sam. So with 300 societies, I can definitely confirm they need a lot of space. How will you make sure that all societies have equal access to activity space? And I'll start with Izzy.
I think that firstly, creating more space is important. I think that the Lemmy could be remodeled and revamped to create more space. I also think that the booking systems need to be fair, and you know, there shouldn't be a way of getting onto the system early and booking your slots in, as I know has sometimes happened with groups I've been in. And I think that with clear advertising and clear systems of when bookings open and more space created, then I think that's a problem that can be solved.
Thanks, Izzy. Sam?
Having seen this in action, I think there's a clear issue with the room booking, in that I think sometimes there needs to be greater priority put towards students and societies. As often in the past, there is often a preference put towards external companies being brought in ahead of student societies. And I think that is a key issue where there needs to be greater communication between the guild and societies as to what rooms are available. And I wholeheartedly agree with Izzy that there needs to be a better look into what space is available, especially as we're now looking at a number of new builds being built across the university. And I think all new builds built by the university should have a direct consideration for the student space that is in it, to be able to work out how this can be used by students.
Thank you, Sam. Megan?
Can you repeat the question? My internet cut out.
Yeah, of course. So with 300 societies, they need a lot of space. How will you make sure all societies have equal access to activity space?
Okay, so yeah, like I said, the booking system needs to be redone. You can't be having groups of 5 in spaces that are groups of 30 and vice versa. It doesn't work. And also it's looking at spaces across campus, because there are some spaces that societies aren't allowed into, which doesn't make any sense when they're big enough for societies. And again, like Sam said, with new builds, it needs society space needs to be a big part of it. It can't just be academic. We need societies as a massive part of universities, so we need that to be included.
And Ollie?
I would agree with the comments that are made. We need to make sure that sufficient space is available and that the system allows societies to book it. And we also need to make sure that every society has a chance to access the space. So I think we should look at ways to make sure that it's not certain societies just dominating the booking forms. And I think that needs to be very carefully examined.
Fab, thank you. So we have one last question before wrapping up. I hope you've all enjoyed this and not feeling too shattered. I know it's been a lot of questions, but you've all done brilliantly, so thank you so much. And the last question is, college officers are responsible for all aspects of the student experience in their respective colleges. How would you support the college officers with regards to student opportunities at subject and college level? And I'll start with Sam.
I'd say I think better utilisation of current systems in place to be able to have them have better broadcasting of how that is done. As often I've seen the past college officers make use of emails. However, as you'll know, often when we get bombarded with the emails, these are just often ignored. And I think that's a key issue, is there's that lack of engagement between students and college officers. I think trying to work out a system in place to have a better encouragement of communication between these two and bring the divide close together rather than just a select few students that will regularly get involved. And I think better usage of guild space and guild channels to be able to encourage students to have their voice heard by this, by showing where their voice has been heard.
Thank you, Sam. Ollie?
I think college officers are a valuable part of our guild, and we need to make sure that they are used in effective ways. So we need to ensure there's sufficient cooperation between the full-time officers and the college officers.
Izzy?
I think in a similar way to society committees needing accredited training, I think the same should be done for college officers. I also think that there needs to be an open dialogue and we need to work together. This year, as president of Drama Society, we've done a few collaborations with the department and with the SSLC, which have been really successful. And I think more collaborative events like that mean we can all work together and all get the most out of our employability opportunities.
And lastly, Megan.
Again, my internet cut out. Could you please repeat?
Yeah, that's fine, no problem. So college officers are responsible for all aspects of the student experience in their respective colleges. How would you support the college officers with regards to student opportunities at subject and college level?
Yes, okay, so it's a lot of training that needs to be done, and making sure that there is that conversation between the guild, between societies, between the colleges. I know a lot of academic societies really utilise their SSLCs and work with the college officers for department things, which I've seen done really successfully in 2 of the academic societies I'm part of, and I think that should be carried through as many as possible.
Amazing, and breathe. Almost done. So a huge thank you to you all for participating today, and of course to everyone who tuned in live or is watching this back later. Make sure you check out the other Question the Candidate events for the other full-time officer roles. So tonight we've got the AU President candidate question time, and tomorrow VP Liberation and Equality and Guild President. Do take the time to read all the manifestos, and if you can talk to the candidates, it's so important that you use your student voice and vote for students who will represent your priorities and enhance your student experience. Voting is now open, which is super exciting. I think we hit over 1,000 votes this morning. So please do vote. It closes at 4 p.m. on Thursday, so you only have a couple of days, and results will be announced on Friday evening. So before we go, I'd love to hear a very quick sentence from each of you, just a few words of why people should vote for you. And I will start with Megan.
Basically, I've had a lot of experience with the Guild already. I'm not shy at speaking up when things need to be spoken about. And I really just want to work with you guys. I don't want to be a voice saying, oh, by the way, this is happening. I want it to be a collaborative effort between me and yourselves.
Thank you, Megan. Izzy?
Because my experience in the Guild proves that I have the skill set to create safe, diverse and accessible opportunities for all students from all different backgrounds.
Ollie?
It hasn't come up in these questions, but I'm the only candidate who is committing to protecting the affordability of the formerly Guild-owned outlets. I'm running a full investigation into the rumours that the university fired all of the casual staff as soon as they inherited the outlets.
And Sam?
With me, because I really want to create a guild that works for students and with students to be able to support them, because I think there is that need for greater cooperation between the guild and students so they can support them better. And please vote for me so I can do that with you. Thank you.
Amazing. Excellent summaries. Thank you all so much. Thank you to everyone who's watching. So please do vote, stay safe, and thank you so much for tuning in.